Yeah.
This is great starting music. Mic 1 is on. Mic 2, I'm just gonna leave right here so it catches everything. Mostly everything. Yeah. Okay. All right. If you would be so kind.
And I don't need to take any notes because it's recorded.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you want to go ahead and give that a pause.
Yes, yes.
Awesome. All right. Were you sitting right there?
I'm moving around. I'm not sure what's happening next, so I just
Can I sit
went
right
to
there?
float. And float. Yes, sit.
Amazing. Okay.
I'll sit like in the audience.
Awesome. All right. Almost. Okay, sweet. So thanks for being here, and thanks for being here virtually. So just going to go over what this is in brief. So this is the app that was created to support what I call the Chrysalis method. So again, I'm just going to give a quick summary of what the Chrysalis method is. So its birth was kind of inspired by getting ready for a talk that was presented here about how we can effectively interface with our subconscious minds. And the subconscious mind is kind of the tail that wags the dog, so to speak. There are so many things that we can change in our lives, but the thing that accomplishes this beautiful kind of 80-20 rule amount of progress in a way that's virtually effortless is how we structure and furnish our subconscious minds. So, I wanted to get into that for my own benefit, like everyone does. There were certain, problems that I found myself facing time and time again. I found myself hitting walls that I couldn't get past, habits that I consciously knew were very destructive or at the very least not constructive for my life, but I kept repeating those habits even though I could see the result wasn't anything good. So that got me really into subconscious work, and I found that there were 3 pioneers in the space who were not teaching abstract bullshit. There's a lot of people who are familiar with subconscious work because it overlaps with things like the law of attraction. The issue with the law of attraction, and I have nothing but respect for the people who it works for, but it's tragically misunderstood and oftentimes misrepresented. There's so many people who think that it's all a matter of how stubbornly you can repeat something to yourself. Like, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. There's $1 million in my bank account. Say that 10 times fast, 3,000 times a day. And, it produces this shotgun blast of an effect where some people it really works for. That's why you see YouTube videos that really blow up and, it inspires hope for thousands of people. But then a fraction of those people are getting the same results as the person in the video that inspired them. And again, the mover is what's going on in the subconscious. So the 3 people who I discovered who paved the way for a very methodical approach for doing this, one of them's name is Neville Goddard. The other's name is Marilyn Jeanette. And the third's name is Bruce Lipton. So Neville Goddard, he's kind of the grandfather. He was doing his things in like the 40s, possibly earlier. And then Bruce Lipton and Marilyn Jeanette, they're his modern, the people who kind of are carrying the torch. And they've made their own observations and they've innovated. But I found that there's actually a through line between, or that goes through all of their work. And there's something that when you combine all three philosophies and methodologies, something reveals itself that's unique, that isn't taught in any one of them on their own. And so from that was born the Chrysalis method. So what the method is it's combining conditions that are backed by neuroscience and psychology with language that's also backed by neuroscience and psychology, with the ultimate authority in your subconscious mind, which is your voice. Your voice is what your subconscious mind ultimately takes seriously. Other things can get in there with a lot of brute repetition, but the subconscious mind is more quickly and easily influenced by you. Your tone, your way of speaking, everything. So if you go on YouTube as someone who's interested in subconscious reprogramming, you have these videos where it's 8 hours long, so it spans the duration of time you would be sleeping. And there's these affirmations, but it's in someone else's voice, and that's the first major flaw. The second major flaw is it's not fine-tailored vocabulary. Subconscious reprogramming is a shotgun blast in its efficacy because most people assume that the same affirmation statement will work for them because it worked for someone else. So again, we could use the topic of money. That's something that most people go into this for. So if you have someone who has like literally lint in their pocket and they're living like in their Honda, you know, on Skid Row, if that person were to get into this and repeat to themselves, I am a multi-millionaire, their odds of that working are not guaranteed. That doesn't mean that there's no chance, but it's such a gap between where they are and where they're saying they are that the subconscious mind immediately throws up a red flag and you feel like you're lying to yourself. And that it doesn't matter if you're saying it consciously or if you're listening to it when you're sleeping. Your subconscious mind will still tense up and the suggestion won't be accepted. So you need to fine-tune the vocabulary and use phrasing that the subconscious mind can get on board with. And then the third aspect of this method is what I call the fertile soil of a theta brainwave state. So the brain, every day, it's doing a tango between multiple brainwave states. When you're in deep sleep, beyond REM, when you're not dreaming, that is when you're in delta. When you are in a really focused kind of flow state, oftentimes that takes place in alpha. When you're going about your day, having like casual conversations or working or doing tasks that you've done many times and are familiar with, you're in beta. So the majority of our lives are spent in either beta or a beta theta hybrid. Or a beta alpha hybrid. You know, if you have a job where you get really focused, you switch from beta, which is kind of basic, to alpha for a little bit. But delta is reserved for sleep, and theta is reserved for states of more relaxation. So if a person gets out of a yoga class, if a person is fresh out of meditating, if a person wakes up from a nap, the one thing all those things have in common is a theta brainwave state. So theta happens to be when the subconscious mind makes itself open and receptive to suggestion. And what's really interesting, and this is something that Bruce Lipton talks a lot about, is when we're very young, like the first 7 years of our lives, he calls it being in record mode, because it's like you've just got this recorder that's utterly receptive of everything going in, because the major brainwave state that you just happen to stay in for the first 7 years of your life is theta. So that's why we adopt the patterns that we do. We soak in the nutrients and the toxins of our environment. All these things are happening, and it's almost entirely out of our control. Because when you're in theta, you're a sponge. But we can leverage that. Even though we've all had damage dealt to us because of that, inadvertently, now we can take advantage of that, and we can kind of hotwire the process. And so that's what this does. And what I love about this is that it's effortless. It really, I want to call it the respectful counterpart of a healthy work ethic. Because there's two camps. There's people who believe in surrender, and there's people who believe in hustle. And I have a great deal of respect for both, because I think that there's a lot of truth in both. When you're in a hustle mentality, which I've been in numerous times, you're willing to do anything at any time of day to achieve your goal state. And there's a lot that has to teach. But then that has its own innate toxicity, because all of a sudden you can lose empathy and you can lose respect for people who aren't as driven as you, who maybe aren't as in hostile conditions, that they're not as inspired to change. A bunch of shit can come from your own bias. Either way. Now, the people who are fully surrendered, they can slip the other way and just not do fucking anything, because they're expecting something to come from their utter non-effort. And for some people, depending on your inward standing and your motivation and your state of being, for some people that super works and it's not toxic. But either one has the potential for a kind of fallout. So what this method does is it takes place in utter effortlessness, because you are listening to the tailored to you, the individualized affirmations that you create, but you're listening to them in your sleep. So you don't need to do anything for the majority of this method. But that doesn't mean that you wake up and you just sit around all day. This happens in tandem with your life. And it's mind-boggling. And the people who I've tested this with before the beta test, being myself, my mom, and a very close friend of mine, practically my sister, shout out Melissa if you're watching this, we all experienced what we described as things happening that are very subtle and simultaneously profound. Because when you change the silent script writer of your life, it's like everything changes, but nothing changes. Your subconscious beliefs are influencing the extremely subtle, nuanced under and overtones that are the background humming of your life. So it's like if you have a good dream that takes place in a park, the outward scenery, the sounds, the grass, the architecture, it all looks the same as if it were a bad dream. You could have a nightmare in a sunny park, but the difference is there's a feeling in the background. In a nightmare, you might feel intense paranoia. You're not safe. You feel like something's coming after you, but you can't see it. And it's that tone that makes it a nightmare. In a good dream, you're like, hell yeah, I'm in a park. It's really relaxed and you feel at ease in the park. But the difference is not the outward circumstances. It's this script that's running, humming, almost unnoticeable in the background. And yet, this sliver of reality controls your experience of the whole thing. That's what subconscious reprogramming is. So, as you change your beliefs, you change not the outer world, but you change how you respond to it, how you hold yourself in it, how you navigate it. And all of those things then produce fruits in a way that feels effortless. But there is still time and energy being put into things. You're doing stuff. And then for portions of the day, you're not doing stuff. And that's beautiful. Both are beautiful. But what's happening is this thing that moves, inspires, and narrates you and your life, that's what's changing. And so the Chrysalis method, it works because it combines those three elements. Your voice, affirmations tailored to you, and theta state. And the affirmations is the part that this app really delivers on, because most people haven't spent tons of hours learning about subconscious reprogramming from like 3 different people. And so most people wouldn't know the little nuances in how to effectively create a statement that your subconscious will listen to. And the beauty is there's kind of like templates, so you don't have to put in that much effort. The app, though, it has a little built-in chat bot. So you say, hey, this is the thing I want to work on. And it asks you how sensitive that topic is for you. And the way that it gathers that information is it does a body check. So if you want, if you want a better relationship with money, it'll ask you, okay, well, how does getting a lot of money feel in your body? Do you feel tight? Does it feel like relief? Does it feel neutral? And then you would click tight, relief, or neutral, or like your own response. And then it'll say, so let's say it's really tight. Let's say a person, same person who's like living in their Honda on Skid Row, if they said I'm a multimillionaire, it wouldn't work. So what would work? What would work is using something in me statements. Something in me statements are very powerful tools that have worked for me and my mom. And I think the third person who tested this, Melissa. And it's very much what you're imagining it is. Something in me is feeling more comfortable with receiving money. And what that does is it puts a little healthy gap between you and I am. Because I am is a very powerful statement. We know that. That's a great thing. Once you're ready for it, you can utilize it. But saying something in me is, it means you're not freaking out your mind by saying, I am a thing that you don't believe you are yet. But we can all relate to something in me, because we've all felt like, oh wow, something in me is really responding to this. Something in me thinks I can do it. And you're not freaking yourself out by saying, I got this, but you're giving yourself the momentum that'll actually land you there. So, there's different little vocabulary tools, like something in me statements, that this app takes advantage of. And these are things that a person might not think of on their own. So, it works in a 20-night container, which the app calls a journey, because it takes 20 nights for your subconscious to fully receive something. But you might start noticing changes in a very short time. I did. And the one thing that I think should be said before anything else now is you got to use this for love. There are very wicked people in the world who command a lot of power. And, you know, that is proof that you don't necessarily need to be a good person to have a lot of power, money, or influence. There's a subconscious belief that these people inherited where they feel comfortable around a shit ton of money. And they're not saints, but it works, which means that this can be used, you know, for anything. So what I ask of people who use this app is to use it in love. You know, if you're going to use this to build a relationship with your finances that's going to get you your dream life, make sure that that dream life, you know, just have your intention to be that it makes your life awesome and it makes the whole awesome. Because that way no one's suffering. And this comes down to any belief that you want to install. My personal ask is that you use this app in love. And so yeah, now you have like the overview of the method. You have why I took this and turned it into an app. Because, well, there are other apps, I'll just say this, but they don't have the fine-tuning statements. A lot of them are like, you know, very generic, like, I am super confident, and if you're not, then good luck. And, you know, they just don't integrate the attention to the individual that is crucial if you're really going to do this. And so now, what's being asked of all of you as participants, if you choose to proceed and help me with the beta test, is there's certain things I want to look for. And I just want you guys to keep this in mind. So, I mean, the main goal here is just to gather your experiences. I want to know that this is as effective for me as effective for you as it was for me, my friend, and my mom. I want to gather more data, get testimonials, and, you know, like, I want the proof to be in the pudding. So now, congratulations, you are the pudding. I hope you like tapioca.
Chocolate?
Just kidding. Chocolate.
Okay, so,
You get up and leave? Hell no.
so if you take and just put it on pause, I can get a blanket, take a pee, maybe pet a cat.
Yeah. Here, we're going to pause this. Make sure batteries didn't die too.